Hey, Jim Cam here, founder franchisor of multiple brands, exceeding now over 150 locations. And the question and also the topic of the video today is how do we pick your location if you want to move forward with us? And also how we control the rent for you. So we can help you save as much as possible and maximize your profit. That's how I've been operating for years. And this is how we've been scaling the 100 plus location for years too, based on those same principle. So location pick. If you were usually when you contact us first, we will ask you, do you have a preferred area in your mind? Because we respect your first choice. And after that, we also have some suggestion for you. The reason why we are very picky on location is we want you to be able to be in the business as long as possible and also to maximize your profit. Because my understanding of business is fixed costs are the cost that no matter how well the business is going and doing, you cannot change it. So might as well keep it as low as possible. So this is where directly you can save and have money inside your own pocket. So for location pick, basically there's only two ways. You tell us exactly which area you want, or we will show you what we have, what are the deals that we can get that is off market. Because we have a lot of good relationship with many landlords, big landlords, and also we have brokers that works on a lot of the off market deals that you cannot find it yourself. So those are the two main points where you can pick your own first location. So now imagine now you have your location in mind. So what do we actually do to help you save on your cost, save your rent, and also make sure that it's a good deal for the chosen area? So the general rule that we do have is the rent should not surpass 10% of the total annual rent. The rent, 10% of the annual revenue. Now you might ask, how do we know what is your potential revenue you make through the years? Today, for sure, I can tell you exactly why I know. Because after opening more than 150 locations, we have the data. We know exactly which brands are going to perform well in those specific areas. Because if you look at our brands, mostly we're not located on the prime spot, any prime spot, or the biggest mall. The reason is very simple because the rent's got to be much more higher. Let's pick a random, very conservative numbers. You make 500K average per year. So the rent has to be 10% this. So it's going to sit between 4,000 to 5,000. So imagine you go to any prime mall, they're going to charge you 20K per month. But with that amount extra that you're going to be paying as a fixed cost for the rent, will you be making 4x this number? Probably not, because you have to be realistic. And restaurant business, it's not like selling online clothing or any other stuff. I know you heard a lot of restaurant sales, and this is the main reason why, because they take on a too big of a space. That means the rent is going to be much higher, but the turnover, the revenue is not enough to cover. And also, not to mention, rent is only the fixed cost. There's the other cost, the much bigger percentage than just 10%, which is labor and also food cost. And in order to be able to supply 150 sittings, by example, you need multiple staff in place. But what if there's a storm coming? Like it just happened with the freezing rain. That means there's no business to be done. And sometimes you don't know how bad it can escalate. So just by that information alone, you know your business it's very much at risk. And if you have no customer, which leads to the second problem, food quality, things will perish, will go bad. You have to throw it away. So the reason why we focus is on takeout and deliveries, we want to minimize and also eliminate all those risks. But anyway, to be safe, we want to help you control the rent or under 10%, and the rest will follow. But the rent first. This is one of the key elements because I like the fact that all fixed costs that you can save, you can just directly put it in your pocket. Let's say, by example, you pick downtown Montreal, projected sales to probably 800K per year, and you pay 8K of sales of rent per month. This is a very reasonable, but don't go up to 15K, which a lot of places and landlord charges. That doesn't make sense at all. Because just be smart. Just do your own numbers. You will see easily that it won't make sense. What if you go further away from the city? But you might be surprised sometimes. We do have some good location that we can find in the downtown area or prime location, but it's not just located on the main street, but on the side streets, which saves you more than 50% of this, even lower than this. Doesn't matter where you're gonna be deciding to open the first store. We want you to focus on three recurring customers. First one, the resident
Of course, right? Second one, office workers. And thirdly, students.
When I say office workers, can be hospital workers too, anywhere. But you just need to have people working and also needing a lunch or a dinner. So those are your main customers. Let's say, by example, a place like Old Port, you might be having a lot of tourists coming in 3 years. But this is a good thing, but also a bad thing. That means they're low recurral. So any good customers that you serve, it's basically just a one-time deal, which they will not come back or probably not spread the word for you. So you will not have new customers, not recurring customers, which is not our main focus. We don't always go where the hype is. We create the demand and people that are with the resident working close by, students, will make it affordable and also accessible for them. So they will be basically, it's a no-brainer for them to just come and consume at your restaurant. So the first one that we just covered, it's about picking the right location. So keeping the rent below 10%, and also choosing an area that doesn't have to be prime or height. Just make sure you have enough resident, office workers, students in it, and you got to be doing pretty very well. So now the second point is negotiating for the rent agreement. So there's different levels in it. There's the time agreement, the timeline to it, the price, and also the benefit that you can get, and also free rents, all that stuff. So let's start with the first one, and not to mention different type of landlords. You might be surprised there are some very hard to deal with pain in the ass. So firstly, we all want a lower rent, which all landlords basically that we have previously deal with. This is the one point that we are not negotiable with. We want a rent that can fit in our below our 10% projected rental cost SLs. A lot of times we will ask for landlords work, or there will be current tenant that they want to kick out and just replace it with us. Or the lease is about to end with other tenants and they will just not renew with them and decided to rent it to us. And another good part is pre-built site. So there will be site under construction that they will reach out to us and say, hey, if you're one of the first one that wants to look at a good location, we will give you a very good price. And also the type of landlords that they will most of the time they're not the best. But it's part of the game. We love the game, so we gotta play by the rules. So now let's talk about rent agreement. So basically, people like, including the landlords, negotiate for a lease that is 5 years plus a renewal of another 5 years, an option for another 5 years. So basically, it's a 10-year lease. So what I prefer to do is do 5 plus 3 plus 3. So we ask for two options of renewal of 3 years. Why? It's very simple. Here, just take my example with a low initial investment, which only covers construction equipment, POS system signage, more than 50% you can move. So if you do not like the place, if there's big construction, imagine like what's happening in downtown St. Catherine right now. We can basically just move the business. And by having the option of 3 plus 3, so you can have it either after 5 years or after the 8 years. You don't have to be locked in for a total of 10 years before deciding to move around, or simply if you reach your financial goal, then just close or sell the store. That is one of the best part because there's businesses that invested so much in construction. Constructions are the price you pay that you cannot move with you the moment you leave the space. So just be wise with your investments. So this is usually what we prefer to do. If not, 5 plus 5 is still a good deal, even though because we are so low in our total initial investment that it doesn't really matter. But we still want to reach for the extra benefit that you can get. And one thing that you really have to pay attention to is the some specific type of landlords because they will mostly ask for you to have personal guarantee on the lease. But we will, of course, help you to minimize that. Basically, we will just ask if they do require you to have personal guarantee. We will only ask them to get it for maybe the first year or the first few months. So after that, you will be completely free of responsibility. Some others that requires you to give 6 months worth of rent for deposit, which doesn't make sense. Imagine you pay this times eight or six or even four. It's a lot of cash that you just put aside, which can go into your initial investment. So we like to help you lower all the initial costs as much as we can. But by knowing which landlord and how they negotiate, we know exactly what we have to do to get the best out of it. So remember, just don't get scammed. And there's another point too. There's franchisee that want a very specific location, but there's nothing available And the only best spot that we have is probably a site being built or a site that needs to remove the current tenant first. So if you can wait, we will always want to stretch and get the best deal for you. So this goes also in the timeline. So there's sometimes pre-built location that the landlord will come to us and give us a very, very decent deal. Or some landlords, they just want to get rid of the business of the current tenant because they do not feel they can survive for another 5 or 10 years. And since we have a very solid background through success through multiple brands and over 150 locations, that says a lot. And one thing that because when we negotiate for a lease, asking for free rent, it's easy. A lot of landlords will give you rents free of rents for you to just do the construction, right? But what they want to do truly is having a lock lease because this will raise the value of their building. So imagine they will give you 3 months of free rents from the moment that the lease starts. But what if you ask for 3 months free rent first, and then after the first 3 months, now this is where the lease get to start. But from the moment the lease starts, another additional 3 rents. Ta-da! 6 month rent free. This is something we will try to get it for you. But also, another thing that we like to ask is the landlord to pay for tenant allowance. So putting in money for construction, making their space better looking. But this is something that you have to understand that not all landlords they are comfortable to give money to the tenant because the concept, the new tenant, they might not be so familiar with the business. And also, they don't know you. They don't know how successful you can be. Imagine them giving you 20, 30, 50K, and then you just decide to close the store. And then they just basically throw the money away. But it's different when we go with a franchise brand, especially with a franchisee that has more than 100 locations. They're confident that you're here to stay. So there will be even be willing to give you more money upfront for the tenant allowance. But of course, sometimes some landlords they don't really want to give the money, or when it's time for them to pay you, they do not pay. So we will also add a additional clause that if the landlord decide at the end to not pay, we can just convert it into free rents. So this is all the small tips. There's more, but it's already so good. So this are just a few cases and a few example. But our goal is always to help our franchisee win, get the most benefit in every deal that we make for them. Small recap: picking your location, which is controlling the cost of the rent below 10% of the projected sales, and what we think is a good location or not. I already said it. After opening more than 150 location, I know quite a lot. Rent agreement, depending on how we're going to negotiate. Negotiation plays a good part. We have a lot of good brokers working with us. So that's why we are pretty solid in this too. And also all the pro tips that I just mentioned. And I hope this video was useful. And if there's anything else, comment below and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.